right, hey gang, another edition of the Masterclass series. On this one, we're going to talk about what I call range tips. A number of things I've seen over the past number of years is there's some issues that people struggle with almost across the board. One of the first ones we'll talk about is loading the magazine. For a lot of people that have not had a chance to be familiar with small arms, and particularly handguns, loading an auto pistol magazine can be a bit of a challenge. The more rounds you put in the magazine, the more that magazine spring gets compressed and the harder it is to get a round in. And what you see is people take the cartridge in their strong hand and they're going to try to get it into the magazine. And the more you can put in, the harder it gets. The trick is really pretty simple. There's a real straightforward system. Just take the cartridge in your strong hand, and as you place it where you want it to go and depress the existing rounds, you put the thumb of the support hand on top of the other. So I've doubled the amount of pressure to press down and slide it to the rear. Again, watch that. Take the cartridge, instead of holding the magazine and trying to fight it in, you start it right where you want the round to be, that round to be depressed down, but add the pressure of this thumb, press on top of the other, right down and slide it back. Makes loading the magazine real simple. If you take a magazine, in this case I've got a SIG 365 mag, little mag, but it holds 12 rounds and it can be pretty stiff magazine to load. Same thing applies. I take the magazine in this hand, round in this hand, I put it right where I want it to go to press down, take this thumb, push down and push it to the back. Take this thumb, position it, this thumb on top, push down, slide it to the rear. It makes loading the magazines a lot less of a hassle. One other thing that I run into is quite often people come to me and say, well, I've got a single stack 9mm like I carry. I'm using the Wilson magazines, and great magazines, but when they're fully loaded, they're really hard to download. As a matter of fact, you try to get the round out of the top and do it, it can be nearly impossible because the bullet nose will want to dive, kind of gets caught on the lip, and you can press till you're blue in the face and it's hard to get that round out. There's a little bit of a trick. If you want to download the mag, find something, ideally a wood bench or something that's not going to mar or damage the magazine. But what you're basically going to do, in this case I'll show you, you're simply going to take the magazine, give it a tap, you see the rounds pop right out. I can download the mag very quickly to say I only want 5 rounds. That little tap, I don't want to do anything that's going to damage the mag, but that little inertia tap, rounds pop right out of the magazine. So for those of you that struggle with downloading the magazine that's full in a 9mm Wilson mag, pretty simple way to get them downloaded. You don't have to spend a lot of effort. Remember, you're not trying to drive the magazine through the object, just a nice little tap to kick those rounds out. Now, another thing, when it comes to you buy your new pistol and you want to sight it in, you want to figure out where does this gun shoot for me. First we'll address iron sights. The system I like and I use is one that was shown to me by Todd Jarrett many years ago. Most people will put up like a bullseye target and they'll put the sight like in the middle of the bullseye target, the black circle, and they'll squeeze the trigger and try to fire a shot. Trouble is you got a black bullseye, generally the top of the sight is black, and you can be off center a bit, up and down, and you're really not that aware of it. Todd showed me where he basically takes a triangle, and it's inverted so the point's at the bottom. As you can see on that distant target down there I've got, the point of the base of that triangle is right where I put my front sight at 6 o'clock. So the triangle's sitting right on top. The advantage is the top of the front sight, I can perfectly center it on that tip of the triangle. It gives me a good indication where I need to be. Then I can fire a series of shots. Some guys shoot 5-shot groups, some guys shoot 1, I shoot 3. Of course, 3 rounds shows me what, you can fire 1 round and say, well, I need to adjust the sights or I need to do something different, but that can be a fluke. Generally 3 rounds will give you a good indicator of where your group center is. Another thing I do, and I think a lot of people struggle, is they'll go to the range and they'll find a bench. Most shooting ranges have a shooting bench, and they'll set their stuff up and they'll sit down and they try to sight in their pistol. And one of the things they're going to do is they sit down, often they will tip their head down, and what happens is most all glasses have an optic center ground in the middle. As you get to the edge, you start getting distortion. So if you're not looking through the center of the lenses when you fire your weapon, you're probably going to get enough distortion. It can affect your point of impact. So I want to do my sight-in work with my head, what I call a heads-up attitude, where I'm looking at the sights exactly the way I do when I'm normally shooting. One of the best kept secrets is a step ladder. Now, the distance at which you want to sight in your gun, that's kind of up to you. You got to look at what are my requirements. Some guys say, well, I want a 5-yard zero. And some guys say, I want a 25-yard zero. Kind of be realistic. What's the odds of you having to shoot your pistol a lot at distance? If that is a factor, then you want it 0 to probably 25 yards. I'm a big fan of a 20-yard zero. I think 20 and 15-yard zeros make the most sense for self-defense firearms, handguns. Normally, I like to have something that I can pad my wrist on. If I can help it, in this case, I've taken my raincoat and we're going to put it right up here. Now, understand, if you put a pistol so the butt is rested on it, you can shoot it accurately, but the recoil characteristics can be different than if you were shooting just free-handed. Same thing, I can rest the slide or the barrel, and I can shoot really accurate that way, but it's going to somewhat affect, at least for me, it affects point of impact slightly. So I want to eliminate that error when I determine whether the gun's sighted in for me. So the system that I use is I typically like to rest my wrist. I'll take whatever this thing is and I'm going to put my wrist so the gun is basically, the gun's rested on my forearms and my wrist, but the gun itself is not being affected by pressure in any manner. Now in this case, it'd probably be ideal if this was maybe another 3 or 4 inches high, but I can adjust for that by simply lowering my center of gravity, spread my legs so I can get that sight picture, so I don't have to lower my head to look at the sights and break the shot. Let me show you how this is going to work. We're going to go hot, everybody. I've got this wedge, inverted triangle, and it's at about 15 yards. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the top of my front sight at the very base, the very point of that triangle, and I'm going to concentrate on trying to press the trigger straight to the rear. Here we go. We're going to shoot a series of 3 shots. Now, if we walk down here and look, with my front sight held right here at the base of the triangle, those 3 shots impacted a nice little cluster. So realistically, this gun that I just shot is shooting about 1 inch high and about 3/4 of an inch to the right. I like the gun to shoot a little high. That's what I want, about 1 inch high. As far as the positioning of the group here, I can move that rear sight just a smidgen to the left and I'll be centered and my gun will be 0. So it makes it much more precise and eliminates a lot of the guesswork. Now, how do you do the same thing to get to 0 or confirm your 0 on a red dot sighted pistol? Let's go back to the firing position and I'll show you the way I do it. Okay, in the case of a red dot sighted pistol, again, people say, what's the best distance to do it at? I typically prefer to do it at 20 yards if I have it, but 15 is kind of a good all-around for a self-defense pistol with a red dot sight. And in this case, I've got a WilsonCombat SIG Custom 365. Let's see where this little blaster shoots. The difference is now, if you look at the silhouette steel target to the right, it's painted black, and I basically took a lid of any, so that's probably about a 7-inch circle lid off of a food container. And after I paint it first white and then put the lid on and then paint black around it. You could do it where the target's white and the circle's black. I prefer white for 2 reasons. One, it's more easy for me to get that red dot centered in a white background. And when I fire, I can see exactly where that bullet went. I can shoot my 3-shot group. I don't have to go down and look at the target. I can see exactly and make adjustments if I don't want to spend time walking back and forth. Same principle. I'm going to rest my wrist or forearms. I'm going to try to get my eye directly behind the gun. I'm going to watch the dot. Fire my shot. I'm going to do 2 more. All right, now, people say, let's look at the accuracy. We shot both guns at 15 yards. We shot them basically with 2 targeting systems, but let's look at the end result. 3 shots, a little bigger group than with iron sights. That's honestly with me, when people tell me that red dots are more accurate, they may be for some people. They aren't necessarily for me. Part of it is I have astigmatism, and I don't get a nice crisp red dot. It looks like a cluster of grapes. But is that pistol sighted for me? Most people would say that's close enough. If I ever look at that target, this is my first shot, I think second, third. Bottom line is, I would be inclined where these shots are to think I might want to adjust that dot slightly to the left to center it up. And probably what I would do is be spray that, paint that, attach it up real quick, go back, adjust that red dot sight a couple clicks to the left, 1 or 2, and do it again. And remember, the key to shooting a red dot is very, very important. You must focus on the target. With the iron-sighted pistol, I was getting a hard focus on the front sight. With the red dot, you want to focus on the target. And just simply let that dot float at what you're focused on. That's a big fundamental difference. You can look at the dot. You can do it, but that's not the best way to utilize a red dot. But I didn't even have to leave the bench. I could see the hits. I knew exactly what I could have simply made my adjustment, shot another 3 shots and said, I'm good, and I'd been done with my 0. So people often make it difficult. They go out and shoot, a box ammo trying to get their gun 0 to confirm. I find this system makes it a lot simpler and a lot easier. And most important, I'm shooting the gun from a rest, but I'm doing it with what I call a heads-up attitude, and the gun's going to recoil and move as if the same way if I was firing it freehand. So think about those tips. You may want to give them a try, and hopefully they'll be somewhat beneficial to you. In the meantime, stay safe, get your range time in, take care, and we'll see you the next time.